Let's bring you some more analysis now. We're joined by journalist and Council House advisor Jim Middleton. He's live for us in Canberra. Jim, we have seen, of course, the market dives, really as a reaction to this coronavirus and the increasing fears. I guess every time this happens, we get a glimpse of just how severe the impact could be on the economy going forward. And no doubt the government behind closed doors would be more terrified than any of us.
They certainly are or ought to be worried, no doubt about that. Ash, good to talk to you again. Look, interested very much to hear Tim Harcourt's perspective on all of this. It is quite clear as things develop that if it's not now a pandemic, it's pretty close to it. Once it escapes China, not just into Asia, but you've got Iran and Italy involved now as hotspots for the spread of the virus, then we're pretty close to getting into a situation where we've got global fears of the spread of this virus. And for Australia, that's particularly significant. Something like 35–40% of our exports go to China, not just commodities, but as we've been talking about this over the past weeks and months, also, of course, education services, very, very important to Australia. I think it's our third biggest export earner now, and then, of course, there's inbound tourism as well. We are highly dependent on the health of the Chinese economy, and it's not looking particularly great at the moment. By some estimations, China is already the world's biggest economy. It's certainly the second biggest economy. Very, very important to Australia. Its growth rates are coming down. If that continues, it's not surprising that the stock market, not just here but around the world, should be reacting with a degree of alarm to what is going on. It is going to be a difficult time, both in health terms for Australia, but in economic terms as well in coming months.
Yeah, and probably a wild ride on the markets for a few weeks yet as we get more news about vaccines, which seem to then turn things around and lead to some optimism. But we'll see whether that carries on or not today. Looking at the politics dominating Canberra, we were also just discussing there with Tim this target, Labor's net zero emissions target. Do you think that had to be done by Anthony Albanese to give Labor more credibility when it comes to this divisive climate war playing out in Parliament?
I was a little perplexed when the news started to emerge last week about the timing of this and why Anthony Albanese felt it necessary to come out with it at this moment. Also, a bit perplexed at the time that there were no facts and figures attached to it, rather an aspirational goal and intention rather than anything else, given that Labor mucked this up so significantly during the last election campaign. As things are starting to unfold, I do wonder, though, it's becoming increasingly clear that it's really only the Nationals that have a categorical objection to the establishment of a target of net zero emissions by the middle of the century. We've got a situation where all state governments are on board as far as that's concerned. We've got organisations like the BCA and even organisations within the agricultural sector, Meat and Livestock Australia, also seeking to head in this direction. We're also seeing, too, Ash, considerable action as far as businesses and industry is concerned, with the take-up, for example, of renewables, both at the domestic level and by industry as well. The one thing you would note, as the Prime Minister himself has done, that we are world leaders as far as this is concerned, but investment has come off as far as that is concerned recently, and that does appear to be because there is no coherent plan. We do not have the distribution, the electricity distribution structure that we need if we are to take the greatest benefit or get the greatest benefit from all the sun that we have in Australia, so that we can keep on investing in solar energy, solar power, also the firming that's required to go with the network as well. Those are things that are missing, and that does require, or does seem to require, something coherent coming from the government. We haven't got that yet.
No, we haven't. I do want to get your views on US politics, Jim, and just to remind our viewers, we are staying by. Scott Morrison coming up in a few minutes' time, so if we need to cut you off, apologies in advance. But looking at US politics, another big week there, of course, Bernie Sanders increasingly looking like the guy to beat when it comes to the Democrats.
Yes, it's interesting. The Nevada result was quite significant. A very big Hispanic population in Nevada. It's very rare for Nevada to go against the winner the last time round. Its 6 Electoral College votes went to Hillary Clinton against the trend, which went to Trump. So that was an important victory, an important sign too that among the increasingly important Hispanic American population, Bernie Sanders is quite attractive. However, you'd have to say South Carolina, which comes up this weekend, is a very different proposition. Something like 60% of the population are black Americans, and Joe Biden is insisting that he's going to do pretty well there, keep his hopes alive. Polling suggests that he is the front runner, only just. Biden does suffer from the fact that he is just one of a number of moderates in the field, so that vote is being split. But if he does do well in South Carolina, then that will be important momentum, you would have thought, leading into Super Tuesday, Tuesday next week, American time, Wednesday, our time, where some very big states, California and Texas notable among them, up for grabs. And it's just possible that Joe Biden could start to pull ahead, although you would have to say Bernie Sanders appears to be a pretty attractive proposition for those Democrats who have indicated their preferences in primaries so far. Not so sure, however, Ash, whether his comments about Fidel Castro and what he did was not all bad in Cuba, how that would go, for example, in Florida with a big Cuban exile population. And if you can't win Florida, it's very difficult to win the presidency. That was important to Donald Trump last time round. He just shaded Hillary Clinton there, and I'm not sure that remarks like that from Bernie Sanders would go down particularly well with the Cuban exile community in Miami, who are anti-Castro if they are nothing else. So is this a difficulty for the Democrats or not, or are we seeing on the Democrat side something that we saw with Trump, which was that the Republicans did not want a business as usual back in 2016. Do they not want business as usual for the Democrats this time round? And is that part of Bernie Sanders' attraction? And is he more of a threat to Trump than conventional wisdom from people, myself included, have suggested to date that if the Democrats were to select Bernie Sanders, then Trump is home and host. Still remains the favourite, I would say. But these are interesting questions as the primary season winds its way through to the conventions in the middle of the year.
Fascinating to watch, and always good to hear your thoughts. Jim Middleton, appreciate your time joining us live there from Canberra. Thank you.
Always good to talk to you, Ash.